looking at the left or at the right brain? Left. Why do you say it's left? Ano mga landmarks ninyo? What are your landmarks? Temporal pole. What else? The cerebellum. Cerebellum is posterior. So if it were a left brain, the cerebellum would be at the back, while if it is a right brain, nandito ang cerebellum. Okay? So what aside from the temporal pole points anteriorly. Okay? Now, so the landmarks would be what are your landmarks? The temporal pole and your cerebellum. Now, the lobes of the brain are divided into 4 primary lobes by fissures and sulci. So, what would be these fissures and sulci? Primary, yung mga big sulcus and fissures. Your central sulcus of Rolando. So, how would you look for the central sulcus of Rolando? It is that sulcus, it runs vertically downwards. It doesn't intersect your sylvian fissure, and it has a gyrus running parallel in front and behind. So, ito, hindi pwedeng ito dahil broken. Mukhang ito. Okay? Kasi, hindi rin pwedeng ito kasi hindi naman siya dumiretso dyan. So, masyadong mataas. So, it must be this one. Okay? So, this is your central sulcus of Rolando. And this is your lateral. Sylvian fissure is easier to locate. Okay? So, in front of the central sulcus and above the sylvian fissure is the frontal lobe. Behind the central sulcus and above the sylvian fissure is your parietal lobe. Below your sylvian fissure is your temporal lobe. Of course, this is the occipital lobe, but it is better seen more here in your mid-sagittal. Okay? Let's talk about the different parts of the frontal lobe. So again, in front of the central sulcus and above the sylvian is your ano lobe yan? Frontal lobe. Okay, what are the parts of the frontal lobe? In front of the central sulcus is the precentral gyrus. Precentral gyrus, so madaling matandaan. And that is why you have to orient yourself properly. Where is the anterior, where is the posterior? Because if you are not oriented properly, you might identify this as the postcentral. So knowing this is anterior and this is posterior because of your cerebellum, in your temporal pole pointing anteriorly, so if this were your central sulcus, this is your precentral gyrus. Okay? And the function is, it is the primary motor area. Okay? It is the primary motor area. It controls voluntary movements. Primary motor area. Now, in the primary motor area or precentral gyrus or the primary motor area, which corresponds to Brodmann's area 4. So, pwedeng identify mo siya na precentral gyrus or Brodmann's area 4. Or functionally, it is the primary motor cortex. At this region, there is our body is represented along this entire length or strip of brain tissue. Our face will be at this region. Face, actually the mouth, the tongue, the larynx, the pharynx is here. Then the face would be here. The hands would be here with the thumb and the fingers occupying a very big part. Then as you move towards this, the upper extremity and the torso, the trunk. And then the buttocks and the legs would be over here as you move towards your medial surface. So that if we see it here, if this were your central sulcus of Rolando, and this is your precentral gyrus, this region of the medial surface would be where you have the buttocks and the genital region and the lower extremities. So buttocks, lower extremities, genital region. Okay? So that is the homunculus of your precentral gyrus or motor area. So therefore, the different parts of the gyrus would tell you what part of the body it controls. So again, here would be the tongue, the mouth, the pharynx, the face, the hands with a very big area occupied by the thumb and the fingers, upper extremity, torso, buttocks, legs, genital region. Okay, that's the homunculus of the precentral gyrus or Brodmann's area 4 or functionally primary motor cortex. Okay? Now, in front of the precentral gyrus is the precentral sulcus, and then you have two further sulci which divides the remaining part of the frontal lobe into, and these sulci are the superior and the middle frontal sulcus. And it divides superior and middle, It divides, superior and inferior frontal sulcus. Superior and inferior. And it divides the remaining part of the frontal lobe into superior frontal gyrus, middle frontal gyrus, and inferior frontal gyrus. Now, since we are looking at the left side, we are looking at the left cerebral cortex, you know that the left brain controls functions like, ano mga functions na more concentrated on the left? Analytic functions, arithmetic, math, drawing right, and language. Okay, language. So language is a function of the left cortex. Analytic function. So depending on what type of personality or skills you have, if you're good in math, if you're good in analysis, if you're good in you are a good speaker, you can verbalize your thoughts well, it's more a function of the left cortex, okay, the left brain, I mean. Now, so I was telling you that the inferior frontal gyrus is important, especially on the left, because it is divided into three smaller gyri: the pars opercularis, the pars opercularis, the pars triangularis, and the pars orbitalis. And the pars opercularis and opercularis comprises the Broca's speech area or Brodmann's area 44 and 45. And notice how proximate, how near the Broca's area is to the motor area where you have your lips, your larynx, your tongue, which are useful in enunciating words in speech. Okay? So again, pars opercularis and triangularis, which are parts of the inferior frontal gyrus, comprises your Broca's speech area. And later we will talk about how you can communicate. Okay, so as for now, just remember this is the Broca's speech area. So if you have lesion of this area, you will have difficulty in enunciating words. You call it telegraphic speech. So if I have Broca's aphasia, I cannot really explain to you much. I will just say probably Broca area speech. So only the essentials are told, but with much difficulty because of lesion of this Broca's speech area. Okay? So again, we review the parts of the frontal lobe. Precentral gyrus is what? Functionally? Primary motor cortex, corresponding to Brodmann's area 4 and functions for the control of voluntary movements. And there is a homunculus, what is located here in the lateral thirds, tongue and the face. The hands will be in the middle thirds. Your torso will be here, trunk and upper extremity.